environmental risk. Okay, now let's take a look a little bit on the political risk. So what do we have in political risk and environmental risk? So under political risk, Miss Present. Okay, so political risk, as you can see here, is the risk that business face because of regulatory environment and the context that they are operating. So in the Wilmer case of sustainable supply chain, they basically involve in the political risk when they are opening their business in Indonesian land. So some business might face strict regulatory requirements such as environmental regulation and safety requirement. On top of that, the company might need to comply with regulatory and legal requirement to avoid litigation with stakeholders such as government, supplier, and consumer. So in Malaysia, we have a lot of company exposed in the political, legal, and regulatory risk. Normally, this kind of company belongs to the sensitive industry. For example, renewable energy. So kalau pernah baca in Gebeng, Kuantan, Pahang, we have one foreign country that is Linas Corporation, who actually mining the earth, the rare earth element from our land. So this rare earth element somehow contribute to the pollution at Kuantan. So it become a political motive among politicians and the people about the best interest between business and people health. So when we speak about political, legal, and regulatory risk, it is very important for the business or corporate sector to assess and study the risk before they enter the market. For example, in the Linas incident, what make a Linas corporation face the legal and regulatory risk is because they fail to observe and to study the environmental context around the factory. So dia nak buka factory dekat Kuantan, but Kuantan is a dense population area. Maksudnya kawasan dia padat. So in that regard, when you actually mining some rare earth, you actually need to release or you need to use a coal. So when you use a coal, arang batu, you have to burn them and then they actually emit a smoke which can cause harm to the citizen. So that is the risk that Linas failed to address related to legal and regulatory risk. So towards the end, the citizen or the people lodge a complaint to the DOE, Department of Environment, and they have to shut down or close temporarily their operation. So that is the example of business in Malaysia. Other than that, we have oil and gas industry, also very sensitive. And when you want to explore oil and gas in Malaysia, like Shell, like ExxonMobil, they have a few legal and regulatory compliance that you need to follow. What about political? Okay, when we speak about political, any foreign country that plan to establish business operation in Malaysia can do it in two ways. The first one, joint venture with the Malaysian company, meaning to say in the level of operation, level of execution, you have a Malaysian company that will do the business together with you. So we call it joint venture. Another way is by giving equity portion to the Malaysian government. So dalam sesetengah case, when you want to enter very high demand industry, for example, aviation industry, so 51% of the share must be controlled by the government company or government investment mechanism. The reason is because if we actually has majority control, 51%, the company could not simply take action that might not give benefit to the Malaysian people. But because we are majority shareholder, any decision that is not in favor to the people of Malaysia can be override by the majority shareholder decision. So that is some of the political regulation when the foreign company want to set up their business in Malaysia. So they have 4 classification: political risk, legal, regulatory, and compliant risk. So in political risk, apart from the political reason, it can also an exposure to the political instability, generally considered as external risk to the business. So as a business owner, when you enter into Malaysian market, for example, you need to pass the control on the majority of your share to the government of Malaysia, for example. So those things is something that you cannot mitigate or cannot reduce. Legal and litigation risk that legal action will be brought against the business. Regulatory risk of changes in regulation. For example, during COVID-19, suddenly government said nobody can go to office, nobody can go to factory, no matter how desperate you want to run your operation, because we want to save our people. So there is a changes in regulation and compliance risk. Whenever you in comply, for example, the Linas Corporation just now, when they actually dispose the waste to the river, they actually practice open burning, they actually did not control their operation and cause harm to the environment. Therefore, they are being penalized and fined by our government. But what I want to bring to you is the first one, political risk. So if we look around us, luckily we never entered into a conflict war or war that can actually affect our economic condition or our political landscape. But if you read the newspaper, I think during this month, starting from last month, basically Russia and Ukraine in the midst of conflict. So what happened in the Russia and Ukraine, they are fighting over the control of Ukraine. So in that case, what happened? Kalau you tengok around the world, when Russia took the first move to attack Ukraine citizen and Ukraine land, developed country around the world start economic sanction to Russia. So United States, UK, and all of the US friendly country start to ban their economic from entering Russian market. What happened? Starbucks need to close. McD has to stop their operation. Channel and all American company being pulled from the Russian country. So that is political instability. So when you want to open subsidiary or company, first you need to study in the context of international, how stable the politics in that country. So when we speak about Russia and Ukraine, the business like McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger King, those who actually has subsidiary in Russia need to absorb the consequences that is loss in their business and customer. Since the war is still ongoing, they cannot see how their future will become. Maybe McDonald's, Starbucks, and all US company has to close permanently their operation in Russia. Or maybe it's just a temporary ban by the US and country that is friendly to US. So what did Russian do in order to gain back the control? Russian counterattack. When they put economic sanction to the Russian economy, Russian counterattack by threaten United States and EU to buy their oil and gas using gold or ruble. So kalau you nak tahu, Russia adalah antara pengeluar emas dan juga petrol yang terbesar, nombor 5 terbesar di dunia in term of oil and gas. So in that regard, Russia hilang dari Zoom. Okay, I dah hilang daripada Zoom sebabnya the internet is sabotaging us. So I think maybe we can Nasib, I'm missing from Zoom. So maybe I think we can recap the session today. Internet is not good, I think, because of the weather, hujan lebat. So it coming and goes. So let's take a break for today class. I think too many information maybe will cause you exhausting. So let's cut off the class for today. When we come back after Hari Raya, we are going to discuss and wrap up the chapter 2. We have environmental risk and political risk, and then we are going to discuss on the case study. I do have few case study we want to discuss, and I want to see what is your opinion. And if you are in that position, what kind of action would you take to address the matters? So let's save those after Hari Raya. After Hari Raya break, we are going to go to chapter 2 and chapter 3. Then we are going to go to the introduction of chapter 4. Duration and time for the test. I don't have a final date yet. The RP still not deciding. But once I get the date, and I will let you know, and we can do our test. So next week, I will not be around. I'm going to Perlis for some official tasks. So this week will be the last week I'm meeting you before Hari Raya Eve. So maybe for the next week, we are going to think about the replacement once you return from Hari Raya break. So due to that, I want to take opportunity to wish all of you, especially for the Muslim fellow, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri, maaf zahir batin, and selamat berbuka puasa. And for the rest of you, enjoy the holiday, take care and stay safe. So that's all for the class today. Mr. Lupa, any question? Sebelum kita cut off, any question from you guys? Ada soalan tak? Azrina,
No question.
Azrina boleh present after Raya tak? I think your group is the last one. Can we present after Raya? Boleh tak? Azrina, is it okay? Boleh, okay. My line pun tengah tak berapa bagus. Dia macam 1 bar, 2 bar. So I'm afraid they will cut our class again. So let's cut it off while we have the opportunity. If you have any question, you can ask, or if you want to type in the chat box, you can do so. If not, maybe you can approach me personally so I can address to your question and issue personally. So from me, I think that's all.